Good afternoon. In this video, we're going to go over this week's options watch list. Before I get into the watch list, if you're not in the room, you can find the link in the description of the video and in my bio section of social media accounts. Also, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Now, looking at the economic calendar this week, as of right now, we have FOMC on Wednesday. No Powell. Powell will not be speaking at this FOMC. So usually when we don't have Powell or any projections, most of the time it doesn't do anything. But the last 4 or 5 times we've had these FOMC meetings with no Powell, they've actually been movers. So we could see some moving. We could end up seeing something like they're going to project that the next FOMC meeting that's going to be higher base points than predicted, or they could even surprise us and make a change this Wednesday, which will, if they do end up doing something this Wednesday, will catch the market off guard, and it could market could freak out. So this FOMC could be a pretty good mover, even though there's no Powell. So, and usually when you have Powell, it just gives you a few moves instead of just 1 or 2. I mean, it could give you one, because you usually have FOMC at 2 and him at 2:30. Then you have the end of the day move. So we could end up seeing at least FOMC and the end of the day. We just won't have Powell. So be ready for that. I think something will end up happening, and hopefully the market will have some volatility, but we could end up being very choppy until then. So I don't see any Powell speaking at all, or Yellen, or anything else really on the docket that's really important. We have ISM PMI on Tuesday at 10 a.m. I mean, I'm sure Biden's gonna speak all week long. He's been speaking almost every day this past week, so that will probably have an impact on what's happening. So also with tensions happening with Russia and Ukraine, any news that comes out is probably gonna end up market's gonna end up reacting to that. So with that said, just FOMC is something to watch for on Wednesday. Now, I have a few stocks I'm just going to watch. And like I said, I mean, you got to be in the room, because the overnight, anything can happen. News can drop. We could gap up, gap down huge. And it's going to change all the dynamics to the plays. That's why you need to be in the room. So since I have Roku up, I'll just might as well start with this. I mean, Roku, looks like it's just starting to find a bottom, which I think I've been saying that since 200, 300. So we'll have to see. But on the daily, you get an inverted head and shoulders right here. You get the left head and the right shoulder right here starting to form. So it gets over this 140 area, it could end up really taking off and shoot up to 200 pretty fast. So Roku likes to make those $20, $30 day moves, which we haven't seen in a long time. So I think that we are due to see one of those kind of moves soon. I've been saying that forever too. It seems like I'm just beating a dead horse, but I'm just going to keep saying it until it happens, because I think it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. Get on to SPY right now. SPY, like I said, it's going to be all based on news and stuff like that. So the weekly, kind of rejecting the weekly RCT trend line right here, getting a tail candle right here. So we could end up seeing a pullback if this tail candle ends up happening. So I'd watch it underneath, let's see, 450 for push down to, let's see this area right here, 445. 445, 440. I mean, I don't imagine it's going to really do too much until FOMC hits. So I would definitely be watching it on both sides, under 450 and over 455. If it gets over 455, it's probably going to push to the 460 area. If it does manage to get over this 462 area, it's probably going to end up shooting to 470, which has a lot of resistance right here, the 470. And if it does manage to get over that for some unknown reason, all-time high is just pretty close. You might as well just push it to all-time highs at that point. But we'll have to see if if that ends up happening. But yeah, like I said, we watching it from both sides, basically be based on the news and the way the intraday action is. So SPY, flip a coin until FOMC and just trade what's there. So that's why you need to be in the room. Let's see, PayPal is one. I'll be also watching, the weekly looks pretty good. It had that big green candle. It did close underneath. Let's see, the Keltner channel right here. I almost said Bollinger Bands. I don't use them, but yeah, almost underneath the Keltner channel, the lower channel line. So it's starting to get some momentum. Usually when you start seeing it get into the above the lower line, it likes to visit the middle Keltner channel, which is the 20 EMA. So if it does manage to get over, let's see, 120, probably going to get a push to the 140 area, which is gap resistance. So from earnings over here, so I think it can actually push to 140. Have to watch that to see if that actually happens. Facebook is another one. I watch Facebook over. Let's see. He gets at 225. Watch it over. Well, 230 is kind of far away, but it does manage to get over this 230 area. It's probably going to retest this 250 area, which is gap resistance from earnings again. And with that said, we get earnings coming up soon. So in the next few weeks, so we could start seeing some earning run-ups, which is why we have Netflix coming up. I'll be going over Netflix in a minute, but yeah, I would watch Facebook over. You could say 227, but 230 is definitely the bigger area to watch. So 230 to 240. Now, if it does manage to get to this 250 area, we'll have to see if it stalls out and tries to fill the gap. So that'll probably be based on market sentiment and conditions at the time. So SPY already covered. Home Depot seasonal trade. Home Depot's spring's coming. People are going to stop buying some gardening stuff and stuff like that. The sales end up going up for gardening and home improvement stuff like that. So I would watch it over 305 for a push to 310, 315, 320. You get 325, 330, 335, 340. So in middle Keltner channel, the RCT trend line right here is at the 335 area. So it does like to act as a magnet. So I would not be surprised if we end up seeing and testing that. Next one is Apple. Now Apple does pretty much the same thing. It's got a top tail candle right here, right at the top of the RCT trend line right here, and it kind of rejected. But I did close underneath it, and it had this was just an insane run, and it finally had some red days. But we'll have to see if it pulls back a little more on the daily. But the middle Keltner is right here at the 160. I'll just run up to 170 area. So if it does end up dropping, I'd watch it on the 172 for push to 170. And it does get under 170. You get down here at the 165 area. And you get 160, but if it does manage to get over this 179, 180 area, it's probably going to make new all-time highs and make a sharp move to 185 to even 190. So you have to see. Basically, it's going to be all SPY news with the any positive news, or even half the time that SPY is going up on negative news. Like last week, all kinds of bad news, and SPY was just ignoring it. So the market will just ignore it and just keep going if it wants to go. So it does pick and choose whether it wants to ignore the news or respond to it. So definitely be watching Apple from both directions. But I prefer down. It does need to let a little more air out, but it did let some air out. I mean, it did have a couple red days. It did pull back a little bit. It pulled back like $8, well, $7. So it did have some pullback. So I do like to see some kind of pullback. So we'll have to see what it does. But like I said, I'll be watching it both directions. Netflix, definitely be watching it on the long side. And Netflix likes to run into earnings, even though the last past earnings it kind of dumped heavily. But we'll have to see if it actually can get a run going and get an inverted head and shoulders, the left, the head, and the right shoulder right here. So if it does manage to get over this 395. I would say, actually, you know what? I'd get over 380, over the 390 area. For push to 400. It gets over the 400 that we got, let's see, 405, 410. 410 is a pretty big area. Then you got 450. It's pretty, let's see right here. This 425 area. So yeah, over 380, 390, 400. Then you got the 410, 425. Then you got the 450 area. So I think you could have definitely a strong move, because usually when you have earnings run ups like right here, it went from like what, 432 to went up 120 points in a couple weeks. So I mean, Netflix could definitely make a $50 move in a week. So whether it does or not, we'll have to see on that. So that's gonna do it for the watch list. I don't want to go too deep into it, because I think a lot of it's gonna be it's gonna change based on news and stuff like that. So we'll have to see what happens with the Russia-Ukraine situation, any other news that comes up, and just start trading the news and the events that happen. And so that's gonna do it for the watch list. Hope to see you in the room, and thank you for watching.